You're live. It is now. Thank you, ma'am. Bless this town and may it remain a friendly place to live. We pray that this board makes fair and informed decisions today. We also pray that our police officers, firefighters, and members of our armed services here and around the world remain safe as they risk so much for our security. We also pray that our town be spared the ravages of hurricanes and other natural disasters, and that everybody associated with the town remains safe and secure. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item on the agenda would be the approval of the agenda. So do we have a motion to adopt the agenda as it was presented?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add section E onto new business.
Section E. I'm trying to find it. Where you at?
Third page.
What it?
It has to do with numbers for the houses,
Okay, so you want to add an item.
Right.
Okay, so,
signs for numbers of items on the beach side, just like the 911 letters that we have on the
Okay.
front. In the last couple of weeks, we've experienced where people were asked where they were and they couldn't tell them because they didn't know the addresses. I do realize that we have it at our accesses, but there's a lot of houses in between that access that.
okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the modified agenda?
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, the next item would be the manager report.
Thank you. The first item I have is in regards to the Fire Station 2 and also lead certification. I had a meeting with Becker Morgan and the fire chief on January 6th, as was scheduled, to discuss the program changes mentioned in the feasibility study. This week we received the first pass at reorganizing the schematic floor plans and provided feedback for them to finalize and to be able to provide the board before the next meeting. So for the next meeting, we should have a plan that's been reviewed and recommended by staff for the board to review. The town, in coordination with the Resilient Coastal Communities Program, has been working to identify and prioritize projects to enhance community resilience to coastal hazards. Our committee, while working to compile other projects, spoke last week about the possibility of pursuing LEED certification for the new fire station. LEED essentially is an acronym for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. I discussed integrating this at this stage with the architect, and we can in fact pursue it if we wish to do so, if the board has interest in it. Just some talking points on LEED certification. LEED served as a useful purpose, of course, years ago in bringing attention to energy waste and sustainability. As a result of that improved focus, most states, including North Carolina, vastly improved their energy use standards that are in practice today. The industry responded, and high performance has become common. Thus, you're going to get, regardless, a strong performing building from an energy standpoint. However, LEED does have additional items that are more nebulous as to their value. You have to look at different initiatives in the building process as far as installing a bike rack, redeveloping the site, the sourcing of materials. All of these gather points towards a LEED certification, whether it's the goal of being just certified, silver, gold, or platinum status. Achieving certified is certainly achievable with the least amount of extra cost and effort, so that would be the recommended route if the board has interest in doing that. Reaching for a higher level on a semi-rural site is typically problematic. LEED just doesn't recognize a lot of the circumstances as well as here on the coast. The costs, I'm sure you're wondering what the costs are associated with that. For LEED certification, any level requires the use of a third party to manage the submissions. That would be included in the and they would monitor the design and construction throughout the process. Fees for that are in the $50,000 range. The added work for the design team, mostly calculation of reports, usually adds $30,000 for a station of our size that we are looking to build. So we're looking at a total of an additional $80,000 in the design costs. So that just something to consider. If the board has interest, of course, that's one of the things, the projects that we would pursue as far as the part of the RCCP process.
Just one, is there, this has to do with like the payback? Does this have to do with the payback of this thing too? If we're looking at $80,000 in additional cost, from an environmental standpoint, does it allow us to get maybe better grants?
Yes.
Because it's LEED, so are there's offsets to the cost?
Yes.
In terms of energy
Correct.
savings and grants and things like that? Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement. And if the board wishes to pursue, at this stage, I would engage back with the architect to let them know that's our intent. And then we would start to work, staff would start to work with the committee to get the information in place for the RCCP to be able and go forward to request funding. So,
I do have a question.
yes, sir.
So I do have a question now. If we were to do that, would we have to redesign the building in terms of making it more conforming and thus delay the process that we're going down towards trying to get a fire station built sooner rather than later?
It will not delay the process. That's why I reached back to the architect quickly after our meeting on Friday when we were talking about projects, because that was my main concern. I don't want to delay anything at this point, and they indicated that it would not.
So at this,
So we've caught it early enough in the process to where it wouldn't hold anything up.
So at this point, do we need a motion, or do you just need direction from the board to be able to continue to proceed down this path?
Just direction from the board that you have an interest in pursuing the LEED certification.
And
And then just one follow-up. And so when you're doing that, I think it would be helpful for us to see the cost benefit that we talked about. So when they come back and they say, you know, you might be able to get $100,000 in grants and this is $80,000, that's an easy decision, right, for us, as long as it doesn't delay, to Mike's point. So I think if they could provide that, that would be helpful, I think.
is there any objection from the board?
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Sorry. I'll come back to it.
Well, in a minute, I'm gonna ask if there's any objection, and we're gonna keep moving forward.
He's looking at me to talk for 10 minutes. He can-
Yeah.
Well, I believe what we're doing, though, is the town manager would continue down this path, and she would continue to bring updates back to the board, so I
I'll
think,
make just a quick suggestion. I would ask that the mayor ask the aldermen after the meeting if they have additional questions that they would like to present to her, to that, we do it that way.
yeah, I believe at this point, we're just asking for approval to move.
Senior moment is over. Well, if we had a LEED certified building, would it help our community rating scale and help lower insurance prices for homeowners insurance in town?
It would, and Deb can correct me if I'm wrong, but it would help check the boxes as far as our program goes,
It
yes.
can't hurt anything, is
Yes.
what I'm hearing.
No.
Perfect.
Okay, any objection? All right, please continue to move forward with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
DEC Associates, the town was on the LGC's agenda for approval yesterday. I'm happy to report we were approved.
Thank you very much.
So we have under new business 3 specific actions to be taken for the bond purchase agreement, the bond order, and the issuance resolution. Mr. Carter is with us this morning to review and discuss the FEMA SOB scheduled for closing next week, the term sheet, and the USDA refunding with closings that's scheduled for March 9th. So right now I'd like to go to Mr. Carter to go through that process so
Okay.
that you could ask any questions and then be ready to vote under new business.
Okay. Mr. Carter, can you hear us?
And can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good. Well, good morning. It's a sunshiny day at the beach, I presume.
It is today, yes.
Well, let me just say this quickly. On January the 5th, we discussed a number of items, one of which was the refunding of the USDA SOBs that the town issued in 2015. And along with that discussion, we discussed the repayment agreement that the town had with the local government commission and the need to pay those bonds off earlier. And we presented at that time an alternative that would essentially refund those bonds, not simply pay them off early every year, but in fact take them out and issue new SOBs as the way to do that. There were interest rate savings from that. And of course, it was a definitive way to pay it off. We weren't dependent every year on increases to fund balance and the like. And so the town board voted to move forward with that. We've done several things. We asked PNC Bank to provide us a term sheet to do that. They worked on that for about a month. We began that process after your approval. They last week gave us approval to do that. I think at a fair interest rate. Now we know interest rates have risen a bit since January the 5th, especially at the short end of the curve. And so our rate went up about 40 basis points, but that still leaves us with savings of a bit over $1.4 million compared to the savings that we had calculated at the 40 basis point lower rate at 1.5 million. So we lost about $100,000, still really good savings, still a method to get this done. There were no special terms or conditions inside their term sheet. So a good, what I would call a nice clean term sheet. The local government commission is well aware of this. We have kept them along with your staff involved throughout the process. They know of the approvals. In fact, Caitlin just submitted yesterday by email your application to the Local Government Commission. I anticipate that will move smoothly, and that when we come back at the March meeting, you will have other documents on the March meeting to close the refunding. So all in all, I think we're moving in a positive way. And I would say this, your staff has been very responsive in getting all of this done.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Carter?
Is the interest rate locked in now?
Don, you might have to turn on your, yeah.
Yes, is the interest rate locked in now?
It is, and will be locked in for the full 5 years. It will essentially be locked in when you approve the documents in March, but the term sheet they gave us locks the interest rate until the closing on March the 9th. That's correct. And it's a fixed rate over the entire term.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just real quick, Doug, two things. I'm assuming we're not taking action on this one today. This is an update for us.
This is simply an update. That's correct.
Right, and then just, and as I was looking at just the other term sheet and stuff like that, you know, the one thing that kind of jumps out at you is, I saw that you put a collar around the interest rate increase on the other one. I think it was 12%. Is that the plan with PNC, to have something where if we go beyond the term, or like, and I think on the default they look pretty good, but if you could kind of give us an update even next month on both what the default issues might be under that, and if we, for some reason, and again, I'm just looking at something like a catastrophe, we have another major storm, and we have to use the money for something else, what happens under those circumstances?
Let me just say this to you really quickly, because I think I heard all of that. The sound wasn't great. There is a collar around what you're approving today because it has a rate reset every year if we don't get all of our FEMA repayments within that 12-month period. So it essentially is a fixed rate for 1 year with 2 years of renewals. On what will be approved in March, it is a fixed rate for the entire term, so there will be no collar. It's the fixed rate.
Okay, and so on the second one, and again, we don't need to talk about it today, you'll be presenting it. Okay, just to understand, yes, it's a fixed rate loan, okay, and I'm assuming there's no prepayment penalties under that, or facility fees. But as importantly is, if there became a crisis where we had to go beyond that period for the longer term, I mean, it's one thing under the short-term thing, because I think we're gonna find from Caitlin that we have plenty of cash if we got stuck in the FEMA, on the Phase 5 FEMA loan. The reality in that is, rather than face penalties or whatever, we have the cash to pay off if there was a shortfall. But on the other one, we're not gonna have the cash to pay off that one, okay, if there is a catastrophe. So I guess my question is on that one, as you're working through it, is just to make sure that if there is something like that going forward, that, you know, where that, after that initial term, and I understand it's a term agreement, you know, what happens if we don't make the payments?
Are you speaking to the USDA refunding loan?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about, not the FEMA thing. Just so you know, Doug, I'm not concerned about the Phase 5 FEMA one that you're gonna get today, because the reality is, again, looking at the cash report, we've got about $20 million right now. So if there was a problem and we ran outside the 1 year because we didn't have $1 million payment at the end of it, we hadn't been refunded by FEMA, okay, that's gonna be a material to us because we can make that payment, all right? It's a bigger loan that I'm concerned about, which we can take up when you present it next month.
Well, let me just say something now, because that will sort of be the approval process. If there will be a debt service schedule that will start at about $2 million a year for principal and interest to pay off the remainder of this loan, that will run for 5 years. In addition, you have over $3 million a year now in revenues to the system. And so, and in addition, you'll have fund balances of $5 or so million inside the Beach Nourishment Fund. So if there arose a catastrophe and the debt service was difficult to pay, we would simply have to find a way to pay it, either by a supplement from the general fund or something of that nature, because it's an obligation just when you finance the fire station or any other. It's an obligation you have to pay.
Okay. So what you're telling us is, as part of your planning for that loan, you've got default actions that you'll take to make sure that we don't run into those problems, so we'll be able to see it ahead of time.
Default actions.
Not default, I'm sorry. You have considered the alternatives for paying that back if there becomes an issue down the road. But that currently, we've got plenty of money in the accounts and in the beach fund revenues to pay it off.
Yes, and we have 5 million in fund balance, which would help us by that time get over a cash flow issue.
Okay, any additional questions for Mr. Carter at this time? Okay, all right, ma'am, back to you.
Thank you, Doug. Phase 5 North End Truck Haul Project. As we just went through, the LGC approved the funding yesterday. All permits have been received to date from all 3 sources. The Army Corps of Engineers was the last one pending, and we have since received that. The special obligation bonds resolution, as we just went through, the initial resolution was adopted at the January board meeting, and the approving resolution to be considered and adopted later in this agenda. The contract is pending with ST Wooten in the amount of $8,603,110. The contract has been prepared, and once it's finalized today and issued to the contractor, the next steps outlined are as follows. We will confirm receipt of the performance and payment bonds, establish a preliminary schedule within 10 days of the signed contract that contains the following: preliminary progress schedule indicating the times for starting and completing the various stages of the work, preliminary schedule of submittals, and a preliminary schedule of values. A pre-construction conference will be held between the town contractor and engineer to establish working understanding, discuss the schedules going forward, and procedures for the payment applications. So in total, between now and 30 days, within 30 days, a notice to proceed will be given to the contractor. So I spoke with Fran last week just to give the contractor a heads up that we were on the LGC's agenda for approval, so we would know yesterday, just so that he was ready and prepared. So he has been given some notice, but it does not mean, of course, that he's going to do anything or mobilize until he has the contract in hand and signed, of course. So it will take some time. As soon as I know through Fran when he'll be on the ground starting hauling trucks, I'll make the announcements and let the board know.
And then the only other thing I would ask, the same thing anytime we do a big project on the beach, is if we can put as much information on our website as possible so the rental agencies can pick it up and make sure people know when, we'll be moving along. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Special meeting notice. A notice will be posted tomorrow for a special meeting being scheduled for Saturday, February 26th at 10 a.m. The intent of the meeting is an open forum meeting on capital and beach projects for questions, answers, and to provide information on those topics.
Okay.
Is the board still good with that date and time?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Any objections to that date and time? Okay, thank you.
210 Seashore Drive condemnation. You all received some pictures that were taken from our resident photographer, Mr. Evans. The property owner's contractor completed the demo, and the final inspection was completed on Monday. So everything was checked as far as utilities being capped and the site being cleared.
And I understand they're enjoying their new view.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Evans, for the picture. The 2022-23 budget, I've attached to my report a proposed budget calendar. So I'd ask that you all take a look at this and let me know of any issues with the dates that I've proposed. Just to go through very quickly, I will be meeting with department heads on Thursday and Friday, February 17th and 18th. So at that point in time, we'll be going over their needs and reviewing capital improvement requests at that time. I'll conduct any follow-up meetings as necessary. Budget workshops, I have scheduled here tentatively Wednesday and Thursday, March 16th and 17th.
Okay.
From 8:30 to 4:30. This will be for each department to present to the board to review their needs and requests. Of course, if we knock everything out on Wednesday, a Thursday meeting would not be necessary, but I scheduled that just in case. Are there any foreseeable issues with those dates? I see two.
Maybe just a second.
Is that the Chamber of Commerce?
Yes.
Okay, those are just 1-hour meetings though, right? Maybe we could?
Right, but they started at 6.
Okay, well, what I'm suggesting is maybe a 9:30 start instead of an 8:30 start. Would that work?
Just on the 16th, I'm gonna be out of the country, so.
Okay, well then that's,
and that'll
The
be harder.
hour's not gonna help.
That'll be harder.
can we maybe do a, one of the calendar?
17th and 18th?
That's fine with me.
Okay.
And we typically do 2 days. We usually plan for 2 days, and then if we get done early, as you said, then that's fine.
Okay. The public hearing, we'll figure out the March and April date
Okay.
at a later point. And the public hearing on the budget, I have Wednesday, May 11th at 11 a.m.
Okay.
Does that date work
I would do
for
this,
all?
I would take the mayor's suggestion, and since we're seeing it for the first time, give people a chance. I mean, I'll put it on my calendar, but I think.
Well, I'm fine if the clerk could send out one of those, options for days and time. I think that would be the best thing to do. But I would like to try and reserve 2 days, even if we have to start at 9 or 9:30
Okay.
instead of 8:30. Okay.
Okay. Special events, I approved a special event permit submitted by the Jacksonville Onslow Sports Commission for the 3rd annual Sledgehammer Beach Run. It's going to be held this weekend on February 5th between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Their command post is actually Beach Access 2, which is county. The county is aware and has also approved their application. Information was posted and shared through social media. They'll be running a 10K or 5K course on the beach, or the option of a half marathon course with 10.5 mile on the beach and 2.6 miles along the roadside near Beach Access 13B, and then re-enter back onto the beach at Jenkins Way. So I will share the information again, just to give people a heads up that of the activity that will be going on, and all departments are aware and has signed off on the permit.
Thank you.
Town Hall open house is scheduled for February 16th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Save the date notice was posted last week. We will have light refreshments available along with all of our elected officials and staff. Also, I have invited representatives who will be here from the North Carolina Coastal Federation. They will be here to talk with residents on topics such as how to create a rain garden. Also, representatives from the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue and Rehab Center will be here to discuss turtle specimens and how to make your property turtle friendly.
Nice.
So we'll have different things set up for people to engage and residents to learn about, and staff will be here. And it's just an open invitation to view the recent renovations and to meet us all, ask any questions that y'all might have.
Perfect. Nice.
We'll send out more information as the date gets closer as well.
Okay.
The website, several updates have been made to the shoreline protection page on our current website, as you're aware. We continue to make progress on that. Aside from that, an agreement was signed with Civics Plus Municode to start the design of a custom website for the town. This project is expected to take 5 to 7 months to complete. I've been working through a task list for the pre-design phase at this point, and been working on also on the separate on the side as from the website on branding for the town that'll be used with the website and any social media outlets that we use. I expect later this week to be able to share what that branding will look like for the town to gather feedback from everyone. But that will be used in preparation for the new website that we're working on. The building inspector's position, I'm very happy to announce that we will have a new full-time building inspector, Mr. Leon Parker. He goes by Ralph. He's scheduled to start work on February 21st. He is a level 3 certified inspector. He's level 3 certified in electrical, building, and plumbing. So
I think you mentioned he had some type of fire certification
yes,
too?
level 1 certified in fire
Perfect.
as well. So very happy to have him come on board February 21st, so please stop in and say hello. The vegetative debris pickup schedule has been solidified, and we have posted that and shared it on the website. We'll share it again as time gets closer, but the dates have been scheduled for February 21st through February 25th. Debris should be placed near the roadside and the right-of-way. The schedule and guidelines, like I said, have been posted and will be shared as a reminder. Future dates were April 25th through April 29th and October 24th through October 28th. That concludes my report.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody on the board have any questions at this point in time for our town manager? No? Thank you so much. And I also did want to thank everybody for the work effort that went into the shoreline protection page on our website. I know that we're trying to work to improve that, but the information that you all have been able to place out there, I think is extremely helpful for residents, and it allows us to be able to give them a spot to go to learn if they want to know what has transpired or what is going on. So thank you for all that as well. Okay, next item would be an open forum. Do we have anybody signed up?
Yes, Mr. Will Evans has signed up.
Will Evans, 209 Seashore.
Mm-hmm.
209 Seashore. We did it.
We did.
I started it, but I couldn't finish it, and so you people are the ones who finished it. And so I like the we part. We gotta keep working on the we part. Get everybody involved, talk about the issues. But I thank all of you, and the chief was heavily involved as an acting town manager and everything else. We appreciate that. It's a great thing, and I think we can probably push some other folks to take care of their houses and everything else. It's a community thing. The community deserves all that. I just thank you, precious.
Thank you, sir. And would anybody else like to speak? Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to the next item, which would be our public presentation and hearings, and we have Mr. Fran Way from ATM Consulting. Fran, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Okay. Hello to the board, and Alice has filled you in on several of the projects, and I'll just fill in a little bit more. Deb, can you bring up the PowerPoint packet?
Hey, did you get my email that I changed
Oh,
the settings
yes.
that you
You
should
want
be
me
able to
to- you want-
control it?
You want me to share my screen?
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's try it.
Okay, sure.
Everything else has worked today so far. Yep.
Okay, here's just a brief overview of the shoreline. You know, we have basically phase one up on the border on the northeast end with New River Inlet, and then down to phase 5 down to the town limit with Surf City. We have several projects going on. The phase 2 Dune Hall is pretty much north of the Seaview Pier. We'll talk about that. And then there's the project in front of the Topsail Reef Villas in phase 1. And then the big one that, you know, is that we just got the LGC funding for is phase 5. And that is, you know, and I will get into all these. So there's kind of 3 different elements that we're currently working on. With the truck haul north of the pier, we have, you know, about a mile left of material. And this will be, we had the original project as the original truck haul project, the Dune truck haul, from phase 1 to phase 4 was developed based on the FEMA mitigation, you know, basically FEMA mitigation money, as well as a state grant for 1.67 million and then another grant for 1.5 million. At this point, the project has used the 1.67 million grant and the FEMA backing money, and now we're on the 1.5 million grant, and Alderman Benson has been working on that, and this project will be funded by the remaining element of this project, of this Dune truck haul, will be combined with the Topsail Reef project that is in permitting right now. And you can see, and so it'll be pretty much from just, you know, north of the Seaview Pier. For the permitting of the nourishment in front of the Topsail Reef Villas, this is ongoing, and good news on this one is that the lead permitting agency is the Department of Coastal Management, DCM. And we still have to get, you know, permitting from the Army Corps of Engineers and the Department of Water Resources, DWR. But the lead agency wants to do this as a minor modification, which is good and which is faster. And it sounds like this project is moving forward in the permitting realm. You know, and permitting is always slow, and permitting has been slower since COVID. So this is a nice surprise that is a minor modification. That phase 5 project that we had to do was a major modification, and that took a little longer. So that is good news, and you know, this is moving forward, and hopefully, you know, within a month or so, this project can be permitted. And I will, you know, keep following up with everybody on that one, DCM, DWR, and the Army Corps of Engineers. And then here's the phase 5 dune it's not a dune nourishment, it's a beach nourishment. And this is the truck haul project for phase 5. Following the LGC approval yesterday, I have reached out to the truck hauler, SD Wooten, to let them know that the town is eager to begin this process. Basically the ST Wooten, and as with the previous project, the trucks can deliver more. Basically, there's 2 elements. The sand mine, at the mine, they have to stockpile material, and then the trucks, you know, deliver the material to the beach. the trucks can move material faster than the bar area can stockpile the material. So pretty much the sand mines have begun stockpiling material now in order to keep up with the truck haul production rate. And so I will work with Alice today to issue a notice of award, and then the contracting will begin. With a notice of award, the contractor can get his performance and payment bonds together and in order, so he can start getting his submittal of documents together today. And we'll be working with the attorney Eads to work through this contracting process as quickly as possible. And so then the stockpiling should be going full bore right now, since that official LGC funding. This is that small project along the Onslow County Beach Access 4, where material still needs to be done. Dune material needs to be placed here to kind of to shore up that area, from storm impacts and things and flooding, and that is ongoing. And hopefully Alderman Benson has an update for that. He has been coordinating with the county on this one. And basically, this is just an overview of phase 1 and phase 2 truck haul. The remaining about mile, we still are planning to complete that this environmental window, which ends in April. The Florence and Dorian phase 5 category G, all the permits, as Alice mentioned, all the permits have been issued, and we're working with the ST Wooten, the truck hauler, to start this project up. The phase 1 FEMA category G project, we originally had to separate it out from the phase 5 because of sandbags and other elements, and that it is closer to the inlet, which makes it and close enough to the inlet that DCM and the Wildlife Resources Commission and everything, they consider that more it's more specialized because it's so close to the inlet, and the shorebirds and that sort of thing really kind of favor inlets versus open beaches. So that was separated out, but we do think that is a minor modification. The Department of Coastal Management has said this will be a minor modification. The one issue with this, and I didn't bring that up, is that with it so close to the inlet, the Wildlife Resources Commission is saying we're not sure about placing material in the month of April. When in phase 5 and even phase 2, the placing material in the month of April is fine. I'm going to continue to work with them, and that we can get extensions and things, but that is one element of working near the inlet that we don't have to worry about for phases 2 through 5. The inlet, New River Inlet Management Master Plan, the EIS process is continuing. This is working with Mickey Sugg and Jordan, and their subcontractor, the third-party contractor, Dow Cordy. They're continuing to work on this project and get this document developed, the draft environmental impact statement. And then I'm continuing to work with the finance officer and DEC associates regarding any kind of funding and support there. The CO planning is still planned for this coming up season, the spring, as soon as it gets warm, where the vegetation can take and have success, and they will go back and fill in any of the areas where the vegetation did not take very well in the fall, and that is still planned for this spring. And then we mentioned the county beach access. They did have there was the Army Corps of Engineers and the state did their shallow draft inlet dredging. They had a meeting a couple weeks ago, and they're for this upcoming dredge winter. There are no Army Corps of Engineers intercoastal waterway or Jack's Channel dredging planned. There were a few other areas nearby, but nothing that would affect North Topsail Beach. and that's it.
So, Fran, I do have a few questions, and I'll turn it over and see if the board members have any additional questions. So, the one thing I'm getting contacted about on a pretty regular basis are those yellow areas of dune that we miss, just folks trying to plan for when to expect that they'll be receiving that sand. Some folks have vegetation to plant, and they didn't want to do it until after the sand arrived and those things. So if we can just make sure that we're able to communicate out, maybe if it's the range of addresses, so that, you know, they know what to do, or when to expect it, I think that would be good, because I think it's limited in nature, so we might be able to say, you know, this to this should be coming up within the next, you know, few weeks, or whenever that will be started. I'm going to ask Mayor Pro Tem to give an update on the county. Fran had mentioned that. And the next steps on the New River Inlet Master Plan, I know you had mentioned that the EIS is still in progress, but what should residents or the board be expecting is, what is the next step? I know it's still a lengthy process, but what's next? Is it another open comment period after a certain time?
Oh, shoot.
I will have to get with the Mickey and see actually what the next process is. I'm hoping that it's just, you know, issuance of the environmental impact statement, the draft environmental impact statement, to get this moving. So I'll ask about the next step.
I appreciate that.
And feel free to, you know, they really do appear, Mickey does appear to respond to elected officials. And if, you know, any of the elected official wants to kind of, you know, ask him directly.
Yeah,
that
Fran,
would be
I don't mind emailing him. I know he wasn't thrilled when I had asked about a more detailed timeline, but at this point, I think if we could just have a list of what the upcoming next steps are, I think that then we're able to better understand what's left. So I don't mind emailing him. I'll do that. And I will also, I don't know if he could tell me this, but the inlet hazard area, anybody happen to know if that was approved? I don't know when that last meeting was.
It was not.
Not approved?
Not approved.
Okay.
Hasn't been considered.
Okay, so it hasn't been on the agenda yet.
And it's not on the agenda for February either.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and I also heard, I've coordinated with TCM on that, because it does say pending, and they said it was going to go back to the drawing board, essentially, more public hearings and that sort of thing.
So okay, I have some questions, but I can email them directly. I'm wondering if that means that draft or that preliminary version from 2019 is still what is being considered, or if they're reworking it all the way.
Yes, during the permit modification for the phase 1, the Topsail Reef Nourishment Project, I contacted DCM directly, and I said, for the permit sheets, I need to put the inlet hazard area on there. Which one should I use? And, you know, is that 2019 one, you know, where are we in that process? And she said, use the existing one, and that one that was quote unquote pending on there she just mentioned that it's due for more public hearings, and it's, you know, that pending is still, you know, it's still pending, and it's not really going to be, you know, effective anytime soon.
Okay, thank you so much. Mayor Pro Tem.
If I could, I could just add, going back to the question about the EIS timeline. After that December 7th interagency scoping meeting, all the interagencies have a 45-day comment window to get their comments back to the Corps, and typically those agencies don't put their comments back until day 44, day 45. So the Corps is not expecting to receive the comments until April, and once they have the comments, then they will, whatever process the Corps goes through internally, They will finally then release the preliminary draft environmental impact statement. And that will be the next document that all the agencies will again comment on. So it's a process.
Can you go back to the map that shows Phase 5? Well, what I'm saying that all of Phase 5 isn't gonna be done.
This year. It's
Well,
split into two.
Well, yeah, I realize that, but according to the map, it doesn't, there was a section of Phase 5 that was not done in the first Phase 5 project. Then it was redone at our second project, but it looks like it's deleted out of this one again.
Alderman Swantek, are you asking about that red line in the upper right-hand corner where it says 3828 Island Drive?
That red line, yeah,
That
that's the
red line.
section that was deleted the first time.
Okay, I believe, well, I think.
Yeah, well, that-
the engineer, Fran can answer.
That will be included in the project. That may not, because of the permit, and then that was, we made sure that was in there. That will probably, they will probably get to that, not this coming up in the next few months, but the following environmental window. This project, the hauler is going to put about 300,000 cubic yards of material on the northern end of this, the north end of this Phase 5 project. But that element will get hit, will get material, but that material probably will not get placed until the following environmental winter when the remaining project will get completed.
So that's no problem. I just wanted to make sure that it was included. It wasn't included on the other times.
I understand. Again, Alderman Benson and a few other aldermen also brought that up in previous ones. So yes, yep, we're aware of that.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you have another one?
Well, I was just gonna ask you, Fran, per the mayor's comments earlier, that we're gonna keep the town informed through our shoreline protection website page, the progress of these projects. And I'd wondered if you would be kind enough to send us an abstract of what you've said today so that we can post the abstract on the website along with the slides that you have presented. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Any other?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on that, Fran. I think one of the things that would be very helpful, and I think what Rob just brought up, and I think the mayor and everybody up here is, it would be very nice to have a tracking mechanism that shows what the project looks like, what the progress is at least weekly, okay? What's the plan is for the next week. We used to call them Gantt charts when I was a younger person. And then that's something that could be on the website, so that if I click on it and I'm at whatever, my house number XYZ, I know that a week from now, the sand is gonna be at my house, that I'm in the project, okay, and that we're moving along. And my feeling is it'd be nice to have something like percentage of project that's done, dollar-wise, volume-wise, and so on a real-time basis, for example, to Bob's point, if, we know that this is like 45,000 truckloads of sand, right? And so weather, whatever, but to be able to, if I'm a citizen, to know that my house is in the project to start with, which is a good point that you made. And the second thing is, on a weekly basis at a minimum, I mean, we went down and looked at the Ocean Isle thing, and they track that thing daily when they're building it. And so it seems like an easy deliverable for us is gonna be almost an interactive thing where I can put it on there. Similar we do when you're trying to find what phase you live in, and say, today we've gotten to 38% of this first part of this thing. We've gone 37% of the distance we needed to go. We've placed this much sand. We've got this much left to go, and here's how it's tracking. So that if we end up with bad weather or whatever, or we've got an extension, that we still can get the project done, but that people understand that it is moving forward and it's a real-time type of thing. I think, I don't know what the other members of the board think, but to me, that would be very, very helpful if we understand what the project looks like.
I think as much information as we can communicate out is is the best way to go. And I do know that our town manager and Fran have been talking about how to move forward with the next project and what's the best way to keep the updates going. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Well, Mayor, if I may,
Yes, sir.
the town manager did propose a project tracking system that encompasses everything that Alderman Grant referenced. Mr. Way has agreed to it, and we plan on adding that tracking system as an exhibit to the Wooten contract, as well as a separate memorandum of understanding between the town and Mr. Way's firm.
Okay.
So it's on both bases.
Perfect.
Fran, are you still there?
Yes, I am. Yeah, and,
Do you agree?
and the lead permitting agency, Department of Coastal Management, DCM, they require weekly submittals. And it's a lot of data. It's probably too much data for this, so we can boil that down. But weekly submittal is completely appropriate. And we do daily updates internally, but that's the surveying and everything. But yeah, the weekly ones would be easy.
So I guess my only point, Alderman Grant, is I think Alice has and Fran have that under control.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Not only did Alice already get it going, but Fran's agreed to it. Fran, you agree, with the exception of the link, which we're going to handle in-house, you've agreed to the proposed tracking system?
Correct.
Okay.
And then just real quick, one last one for Fran. Alice had talked about getting this thing, you mentioned they're already starting to stockpile and everything else, so I think on behalf of myself, and I'm assuming the board, the faster we can get sand out there, the better it is. All right, because we'll run out of time for turtle season and everything else if we don't move as quickly as we can, so thank you.
Okay. Anything else for Fran? Otherwise, I'm gonna thank you very much, Fran, for the update.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Fran.
The next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions about the consent agenda, or do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Continuing business, Parks and Rec update, Ms. Plato?
Hi, I just had a quick update. While not much is going on, it's still on track. It's still in the organizational phase. I hope to have more information next month. I still have not got to meet with Mr. Swantek, but we will. So I'll have more information next month.
Okay, perfect. All right, the next item is the Shoreline Protection Committee update. And I know that we have gotten a bunch of volunteers submittals in to join the committee. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem to talk a little bit about what we need to do today, and then I would ask the town attorney to jump in if you think we're going off track as far as the process.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'll chime in as
All
needed.
right. Thanks, Mayor. What I suggest, we've had time to evaluate all the applications. We requested that people from all the different phases along our 11-mile shoreline consider applying for membership on this committee. The board has been reviewing those applications for the last week or so. And so what I would propose as a procedure is, so that we don't have the undue influence of one board's member nomination on another board's member sitting here, that we do a written nomination by phase, and that each board member write down 5 phases and write their first choice for that phase, and then we will have the clerk tally up. If we have a majority for that candidate for that phase, that will be the nomination. When we get all the nominations in and we have a clear first choice from the board, then we will have a motion to appoint the committee as a whole. Since we don't have a candidate from phase 2, I would suggest that for phase 2, board members write their second candidate for one of the other phases in to represent phase 2. Okay. We also need, I believe, to at least nominate 2 alternates, because once the board is appointed, I would suggest that the town manager contact each person to notify them that they have been appointed and to be sure that they still want to serve on this committee. And should they decide not to serve, then one of the alternates would take their place. So we wouldn't have a delay in the process of filling the board if the first 5 people that were selected to the new committee would be would not accept the nomination.
And I think the town attorney has a comment.
Well, let me start by reading the rules of procedure, and these are our rules. Rule 38 deals with appointments. Rule 38B reads as follows: the council shall use the following procedure to fill a vacancy in the council itself or in any other body over which it has the power of appointment, which would be this newly created body. The mayor opens the floor for nominations. Then the council members may put forward and debate nominees. Rule 38C does allow the mayor to make nominations but not vote. When the debate ends, the mayor can call the roll of the members if you wanted to go nomination by motion. However, Rule 38F says the council may vote on the proposed appointments by written ballots in accordance with Rule 29. Rule 29 is the voting by written ballot. Here's that procedure. The council must by a majority vote or unanimous consent vote to proceed with written ballots. Each member must sign his or her ballot, and the minutes must record how each member voted. The town clerk is required to keep the actual signed ballots until the minutes of this meeting are approved, and anyone who wants to see the written ballots during that time frame can review them. So as a procedural matter, I think the first thing we need to do is it a unanimous consent that we proceed with a written ballot form of appointment.
And the other option would be simply taking a vote.
I move to nominate Rick Grant for X.
Okay.
Then clerk calls a roll, and you debate in that procedure. Yes, sir.
Just a real quick question. Do we need to have we set up this committee first? I mean, what's the process for, we've established a committee, now we're going to not fund, but basically staff the committee. So is there a vote first to set up the committee and then or did we already do that?
I thought we already established that committee.
All right, fine then.
Yeah, we did
Fine.
And this is more of a practical concern of mine than it is a legal concern. I think there ought to be a caveat for, I'm sorry, was it phase 2 that there weren't any?
Yes, sir.
That whoever, if we follow Mayor Pro Tem Benson's suggestion, that position be held by a non-phase 2 person only until such time as we get a qualified phase 2 applicant. Is there unanimous consent on that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You all should have in front of you the 13 applicants.
And I know, Mr. Hart, you don't have your laptop. I have it on mine if you want to.
Well, I'll read them out. So.
Okay. Connie's got them too. I think we've all got them in front of us now.
So if you don't want to go individual nomination, is there a consensus that for phase 1, the following 4 people are nominated because they applied, and that will allow you to vote on any one of them?
Kowalko is in phase 2.
No,
I'm in phase 2. He's my neighbor.
So you sure, Don? You sure?
Then we're missing 3.
Missing 3.
Right.
let's get this cleared up.
Okay, his application.
His address is 18 Bellevue Drive.
So, Brian, maybe we need to start by getting consensus from the board as to whether they want to do the written ballot or whether they want to do the verbal nominations.
I thought I did get that unanimous.
We did
Okay,
written.
all right.
Written.
And is everybody in agreement that whichever phase is not gonna have an applicant, whoever's appointed for that phase will serve only until such time as we get a qualified applicant that, that lives in that phase?
Except for me. I'm gonna object to that. How can you?
Okay.
No, I'm serious. The reason being, if we do that, and I'm not saying it's the wrong, I'm sorry, it's not the wrong thing to do, but it's more likely we'll get somebody in there if we go out actively trying to find somebody than if we've already filled that spot. And I think if that's the case, and we go forward with what you described, then I think whoever we put into that temporarily, okay, has to become an alternate afterwards, because they're already participating. If they participate for a year, you
Right.
don't wanna kick them off because somebody came in the other area. So
Right.
that would be my only caveat on that.
Well,
Otherwise, I'm fine with it.
I can just foresee, and the reason for my suggestion, Alderman Grant, is simply I can foresee, I don't want to plant the seed in anybody's head, but I can foresee residents in that phase saying, well, we really weren't represented. And it's not this board's fault that no one applied for it, but I just, to the extent someone comes forward, it'll short circuit that type of concern.
No, and like I said, I'm fine, I'm fine with the process. All I'm saying is, I think, because we've had to do this twice, Mike, to get, and we were trying to get people from the phase that was missing. I don't know how beyond posting it and doing it, we've done it to get somebody in. My only point is, though, is that I would love to have somebody from the phase that's not there, volunteer to come in. But two things. One is I think it's unlikely. I hope that happens. But the second thing is, I think that if I'm voting on who's going to be an alternate or be in that spot, that's a temporary spot, that we agree that they become an alternate. Okay, because if they participate in this for a year, to kick them off means we lose everything that we built
Right.
as a committee for them.
Well, I mean, or you could just deal with you could just not have any type of stipulation regarding that phase, and if and when someone comes forward from the missing phase, we can just address it then.
I like that too.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to do first would be to nominate two aldermen that are gonna be in charge of this committee. We don't have to write them down, we have to do normal.
You can do that either way. Well, you might as well do that by motion and vote.
Right. I'd like to make a motion right now that Mike Benson, who is way ahead of all of us as far as it goes for the beach,
Mike,
and
you're being nominated, Mike.
it would be Mike for head and Rick for the second alderman
On the committee.
on the committee.
He made a motion to add us, to put us as a committee.
Any discussion? Or is there a second on that, I guess?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Aye.
Committee members being Mayor Pro Tem Benson and Alderman Grant.
Yes.
Could I just ask one clarifying question? I'm assuming because these are gonna be like public hearings, that in fact, we don't have to worry about quorum rules. So if all the board wanted to attend these things because they're gonna be open meetings, that's not a problem.
It would be,
You can tell us that down the road.
noticing that the open meetings law would apply to this board, but that meeting is a meeting of, committee. That's a committee meeting, not a board meeting. But my legal opinion is you can attend and observe, but once you start asking questions and another alderman asks a question related to your question, that's getting close to a debate that would require a notice for
Right.
this board.
I just think that this is such an important issue for this board, the whole beach committee and the future of the town, that I think that it's,
Right. But I don't have a problem with a quorum being in the room, provided they are not transaction transacting town business by just observing.
Perfect, thank you.
Attorney Eads, what I would suggest is, I see this committee operating a lot like the Topsail and Shoreline Protection Commission. We would have a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting for people in the audience to make comments about shoreline protection.
Right.
And then we would have an agenda, so there wouldn't be a back and forth
Right.
between the committee and the audience. It would be
Right.
during the public comment period.
So could an alderman still speak at the open forum?
Yes, I believe, but here would be the problem. If there's a quorum there, and then another alderman comes up and his or her comments relate to the prior, I mean, it can get gray. It can get gray, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Okay, so we have the committee members. So now what we need to do are the written ballots for
Right.
the rest of the phases.
And is it Pawelko, is that how you say his name?
He's
Um,
in
He said
three.
it's in phase 3, though.
So he is in 3?
Yes.
Okay, so.
Don, you're in 3,
I
2
know.
then. There you go.
And what, Rick, where are you in?
I think I'm in 3 also.
What's your address?
202 Stevens. And Mayor, did we reach consensus that we are going to fill whatever one is not there temporarily?
Yes.
And will that person go into a second round on that, or is that
Well-
going to be the highest vote getter that's not appointed?
I believe it should be on yours, so phase 3 appears to be phase 2 is the one that appears to be still gapped. So what I'm understanding is that we should put a name in for phase 2, just realize from a different phase, but just realize that person will be asked to be on the committee until someone from that phase steps forward who would like to join. Is that correct?
Can-
Wait, he
may-
wants
may I
to say
make-
something. Wait, he wants to say something.
Since we have 4 of the 5 phases applicants, I suggest we go ahead and elect the representative for those 4.
Okay.
And then you'll know who's no longer on the list, and at that point, we can fill in the phase 2.
So come back as a second step
Right,
for that one.
right.
Okay.
Is there a unanimous consent on
Wait.
that?
I didn't quite understand, I'm sorry.
Well-
We'll do that today.
We've got a list of 13, right, yes, sir. We've got a list of 13. We're gonna, presumably, if there's only one applicant for phase 3, so if that applicant gets that position, we're gonna knock this list down, to 9 today. And then of those 9, you'll know who's still on the list to select for phase 2.
To fill in for phase 2.
Right.
Okay, so everybody start writing.
Well, I was gonna hand out these, but if you already have it. The applicant/nominees for phase 1 are Deborah Coltrane, Harry Hoss, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing anybody's name, Hannah McLeod, and Susan Meyer.
Who needs paper?
And we need to sign these, did you say?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you would, at the top of your ballot, if you would put phase 1.
I was just gonna do it like that.
You're getting a new
Are we doing
piece
it
of
one
paper.
phase at a time?
Each one?
I'd like to.
You want to do each bit?
It's easier.
Yeah, okay. Then sign it, right? That's all. Yep.
And is it one person or 2?
It's 1 per phase, 1 per phase.
One per phase. Oh, okay.
I'm just passing that one?
Yep, you can just pass them
If
down.
you'll- Actually, if you'll reverse it, pass it
Okay.
this way,
Oh.
that way
Okay then.
the clerk and I can work over here.
We're only voting for one of this one.
Phase 1
Yes.
only.
That's where I got confused. I listed them all.
I don't get to vote.
Separate.
You can tear that off.
Yeah. So we have no 1 and 2.
Just write for phase 1 on it.
This one's just phase 1.
And we'll skip phase 2 for now.
Okay.
And do we even need to do it for phase 3 because we don't?
I think we should still do it because we're doing the process of the written ballot, so I still think we should do it.
All right, there's all the applicants, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've got it right here too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this
Now,
would
did
be
you ever
phase
find out
three.
what Rick is in?
So,
I'm sorry.
I didn't.
I think he's getting out their pieces.
I don't know.
Yeah, he will. I'm just saying the next vote we're skipping 2 because we don't have anybody there, so we're gonna do 3.
I can't read. There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your address again?
202, C Dunes.
The one house on the cul-de-sac, you mean?
The only one.
Yeah, make sure you get the right house on that road. I think we're right on the cusp on this one.
Before I announce these results, one thing we didn't cover, are we going to require a majority vote or just the highest vote getter?
Highest vote
Okay.
getter.
So is that a unanimous consensus? All right, for phase 1, Ms. Coltrane received 2 votes. Mr. Haas received 1 vote, Ms. McLeod received 1 vote, and Ms. Meyer received 1 vote. So Ms. Coltrane would be appointed to phase 1.
Did you find him, Mike?
I'm working on it.
And can you see? Oh, no, he did sign it. That's not his. That's not his. No.
Did you sign yours?
I don't think,
Vincent, did you sign yours?
no, he did not.
I gave it to him.
No, did you sign your name on it?
You have to sign it,
Gotta
Mike.
sign it.
I signed mine.
You did?
This is the one that has the X.
Said Dean Benson at the bottom.
I feel like we're a bunch of
Maybe it's 2X.
kindergartners here if we were not following directions.
202.
You got a handwriting. I think it's mine looks good. Is this your
It's not mine.
signature, sir? That's your signature.
Apparently you're not, you don't live here anymore.
Looked it up on
It's not coming up on the GIS map. It's coming up Georgia, France. See them.
Dunes over there. Try us. Court.
It might just be CT.
All right, can we all use this piece of paper I hand out?
Sure.
And let's do it like this. That's right at the top, phase 3.
Brian, you need to get your board to follow directions better.
We're right at the top, we're gonna write phase 3, who you're voting for, and then
Sign.
sign your name. And I'll hand you the piece of paper. Mr. Hart, I'll hand it.
This is why he makes a big X.
Oh, okay, you already got one? I just want it
Is
all.
that size?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does anybody need one of these?
Thank you.
Can't find it. Can't find it.
Nope.
It's right here, Mike. Now what am I looking for? Here's Rick. Right here.
So where am I at?
I don't know. I just found you on the GIS.
This might be a surprise to you, but.
3 to 2?
Mr. Pawelko received 5 votes to be appointed as the Phase 3.
Okay, so the next one would be for Phase 4.
And the applicant/nominees are Mr. John Gardner and Ms. Terry Ward. And I'll,
He wants them to be the same size for the file.
just because it's hard to keep, what'd I do with them? I thought I said.
Here.
Thank you.
If you would, same procedure, write Phase 4 at the top, who you're casting your ballot for, and then sign the bottom.
While this process is going on, I just want to make the comment that this is really an historic event for the town of North Topsail Beach to have a beach and inlet committee. For the past 30, 40 years, the town has functioned solely using the Board of Aldermen as their beach committee, which puts a lot of pressure on the board because there is so much information with all of the different coastal engineering aspects of shoreline protection, inlet management, soundside management, plus CAMA, CRC, all the different corps, all the different government agencies. It's just too much of a information overload for the board each time when you get a new board elected to learn all this stuff. That's why we need this beach and inlet committee. Years ago, we had the best committee, but that was I think a short-term committee.
And that was pre-nourishment too.
There was one before the best committee as well.
For Phase 4, Ms. Ward received 2 votes, and Mr. Gardner received 3. So it'd be Mr. Gardner for Phase 4.
Yes,
Okay. All right, for Phase 5, the applicant/nominees are as follows: Mr. Greg Dale, Mr. Wayne Dixon, Mr. Will Evans, Ms. Joanne Furrer, Mr. Bill O'Donnell, and Mr. Larry Struther. Please write Phase 5 at the top, cast your vote, and sign the bottom. I hope I said that correctly. right, for phase 5, Mr. Larry Strother received 3 votes. Mr. Wayne Dickerson received 1 vote, and Mr. Will Evans received 1 vote. So Mr. Strother will be the phase 5 representative.
Well, phase 2.
We're going to do phase 2, and then we'll go to the alternates.
Well, the thing is, Ryan,
Yes, sir.
we already stated that the alternate that's going into, or the person that's going into phase 2 will become an alternate. So if we just assign 2 alternates, then one just jumps right up in that slot.
I thought we
The
were going
proposal
to,
is that the highest voter alternate becomes the phase 2 person.
Right.
Then you've got 2 alternates. Makes sense.
Yeah. Then if we do get a person into that slot from the right area, they automatically go back as an alternate.
okay, because you don't have to create you don't have to change a rule. Okay, that's
Right.
fine. So we're going to elect 3 alternates, and the alternate with the highest number of votes will be the phase 2 representative, stand-in, if you will. Okay.
But the other aspect of this is if we get a phase 2 applicant at a later date, they're gonna have to wait for the next cycle, because these members are gonna be appointed for either a 2 or 3 year cycle.
But
So
if-
we can't have someone start on the board for 6 months and then all of a sudden someone from phase 2 decides they want to be on the committee.
Well, that's what we need to, that's what we need to clarify. My understanding is what you're proposing, Mr. Swantek, is that the phase 2 representative will be the highest vote, the alternate with the highest votes. Once we have a qualified applicant come in that lives in phase 2, since that person is an alternate, they automatically step down into the alternate role, and the phase 2 qualified applicant starts once he or she's appointed.
Exactly.
I think Mike's gonna comment. Go ahead.
I think it's unfair to do that, because the people that applied wanted to be on the committee. No one in phase 2 area applied. And for them to find out, oh, this is a great committee, I could just get on it because all I have to do is now put an application in the board, and the board's gonna demote someone that already applied, is an unfair situation. So I don't think we should have that caveat for phase 2. If we don't have a person for phase 2, initially we were going to have a smaller committee and only have 3 citizens and 2 aldermen. But the board came up with the idea they wanted a citizen from each of the 5 phases, so that's why we expanded the committee.
Well, if the concept, as I understand it, is to have someone who lives in the phase represent similarly situated people that also live in the phase, you may want to leave it vacant.
I was just gonna say, it's great.
Because otherwise, if I'm in phase 5,
Yep, and just do 2
you're going to
alternates.
force me to represent phase 2, but what if there's a conflict between phase 2 and phase 5? I can't represent my neighbors, I've got to represent someone down the beach.
I think it's a great option to leave
Just leave it
phase
open.
2 vacant for now and just have 2 alternates elected, because you'll have plenty of people then on the Shoreline
Perfect.
committee to be
Yep.
able to get it up and running and moving.
Absolutely. And we just vote for 2 alternates.
Yeah.
All right, I agree with that, but my question's gonna be, since we're leaving it open and we have 2 alternates, I originally described the alternates as being persons who would replace the nominee if the nominee elected not to serve. The
Right.
alternates would not be a part of the committee in the future. They would either be on the committee when it's formed because the person that was nominated chose not to serve after all.
Right.
Can I just
Well,
add a clarification on that real quick? Because I understand something, and I'm gonna use the planning board for an example, and Deb can tell me if I'm wrong on this. They have alternatives that show up for every case, in case somebody doesn't show up, right? And so, one is I support the idea, okay? Interest, look somebody in, to your point, if I live, there's a conflict between 2 and 5,
Yeah.
what am I representing? So, and then on the alternates, assuming that they're going to show up for the meeting, okay? And if that case, and to Mike's point, concern I get is if we're going to do some alternate for 5, okay, and the person elected at 5 doesn't come in, slides into that thing, I'm not sure how much sense that makes, because then you're not going to vote on who the best candidates are. You're going to vote on who, you got to make sure you get 1 from each group, which again, we got a problem with because we only got 1 from 3. We've got 2 from 4, so that would make that person the alternate de facto.
Right.
And then multiple from 1 and 5. So, I mean, my feeling is let's just vote on what we think the 2 best candidates are for alternate and leave 2 open.
Okay, yeah,
Well,
I'll accept that.
But here, what's the alternate's role if someone accepts if one of these 4 people accept the appointment but are out of town and can't show up at the meeting, is the alternate expected to represent that phase for the missing member?
Well, now you just threw the monkey wrench in, because under that scenario, then you don't even want alternates.
Right.
You just want to have the 4 slots, and if they turn it down, then we come back and we vote to put somebody back on it, because even if you've only got 3 of the 5, because somebody decides not to serve, you still got enough people.
If it's a geographical representation, I think that's the right way to go. The only other thing I would do is send the districts that you have more than 1 applicant, if you want to do an alternate, but they would slide up in that role for that phase, not at-large person.
I think that makes the most sense, is leave 2 open, okay, and I don't think you do alternates.
Well,
and if somebody turns it down, the next meeting we've got, because, you know, Mike calls up Joe Smith, and Joe Smith says, well, I've changed my mind, then we come back and that candidate's gone, and you elect somebody else.
Well, presumably since they applied, that they'll take it. Now, if 3 meetings down the road they're not liking it, then that's just like any other board.
I agree.
Somebody steps down.
I think we're drifting all over the place on alternates. I think we should not appoint alternates at this time.
So
Okay.
we're done.
All right, so based on the vote as I and Madam Clerk calculated, Ms. Deborah Coltrane is the appointed representative for Phase 1. Mr. Michael Powelko is the designated and appointed representative for Phase 3. Mr. John Gardner is the appointed representative for Phase 4. And Mr. Larry Struther is the appointed representative for Phase 5. Madam Clerk, do you concur with that? Again, these ballots will remain in the clerk's office for public inspection until the minutes of this meeting are approved. They all have been signed as verified by Madam Clerk as well. Any other questions for me?
I believe Mayor Pro Tem Benson has a few more things he wanted to.
Well, I think we need to make a motion now to appoint those people that you named, correct?
The vote was the motion.
Okay.
Well, it's the ballot.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, yeah, there are a couple other aspects of this that we need to bring to everyone's attention. The board has been working with a proposed charter for this committee, and that's why we came up with the 5 citizens to represent each of the phases that was in the proposed charter. So, as the charter suggests, there's going to be a 90-day period from the time the committee first meets to get input from the new committee, each Inlet Sound Advisory Committee, their input on what the criteria are in the charter coming back to the board. And during that time, the board will also have opportunity to review the charter and make amendments to the charter. So it will be, it will be 3 months after the board first meets. So let's just assume four months from now, roughly, the board will have the agenda item to formally approve the charter. But during that time, the committee will have met at least 2 times to get input back to the board. Okay?
Whenever you're finished, I have 2 points I'd like to bring
I've
to.
still got another part.
You go ahead.
Okay. All right, so, the rest of, the other members of the committee, as proposed in the charter, is a coastal engineer advisor. This person would advise the board, or the committee, and help us learn about coastal protection of shorelines, inlets, and sounds. They would be a qualified engineer, but they would not be the town's engineer. It's not going to be like a contract. This would be a person that would be a consultant to the committee so that we have information as we learn about shoreline protection matters. And to that extent, I have been in discussions with Chris Clark from TI Coastal, who is a well-known local engineer who has a lot of experience working with Topsail Beach, with Surf City, and also with us on a Hurricane Matthew FEMA project, to be our advisor. We would, of course, compensate him at his hourly rate for the time he is here participating on the committee. So I would like for the board to, either we do a motion or just a consensus that that would be the way we would proceed for our coastal engineer advisor on the, I'm going to call it the BISAC committee, the ISAC.
Point of clarification, I believe you said Chris Clark. Are you referring to Chris Gibson?
I'm sorry, yes, Chris
No, I didn't know if
Gibson.
there was a Chris Clark at TI Coastal too.
Chris Clark is one of my pathology buddies
Okay.
in Mississippi or Texas or somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know why I said that. Sorry, Chris Gibson.
I recommend that you, if there's a consensus, you direct the town manager and the town attorney to reduce the writing and understanding as to compensation and bring that back, and then you vote on that as a contract. Because you're going to be expending public funds, and that's the cleaner way to do it.
Are we going to discuss that? Because I've got an addition to what he just said.
Sure.
Right. One is, I think that Mr. Carter Gibbons would be very beneficial to us. One of the things that I would like to look into, similar to what we've done with Mr. Carter, is to figure out a way to put him on retainer, so that every time somebody here has a question, the mayor has a question, or the town manager has a question.
Or Alderman Grant has questions.
Yes. No, but my point though is I think that somebody like him on retainer with us, knowing that we can use him beyond the committee, and make sure he is a resource that this town has going forward to us, I think will pay for itself based on discussions I've had, I know that Mike's had, with his ability to find funds for these things, to work on projects and things. So I'd at least ask, the board to consider as a consensus thing, to at least exploring with him, both the hourly type of thing and some kind of retainer to put him on, where, not to be cute, we don't get nickel-dimed with every time somebody makes a phone call to him about a question at one of those meetings or his time, that we put him on some kind of, at least an annual retainer similar to what we do with Mr. Carter. But anyway, that's my thoughts.
That's further support for a written agreement.
Absolutely.
But the scope of the agreement is a policy decision, so is there a consensus that in addition to his... Go ahead.
Just to clarify, Chris Gibson is technically on the ATM coastal engineering team.
I got the same email from Fran.
I didn't know if you saw it.
I did. I was getting ready to say, because we need to explore what constraints Mr. Gibson may have, either with TI Coastal or with ATM, so.
Yeah, he's a subcontractor to ATM because TI Coastal sets the template each day for the trucks and the bulldozers to place the sand.
I'm just saying this type of thing should be pinned down in writing. Everyone has understanding, and if there's any conflicts out there, they'll be disclosed. I agree with the concept, both aspects of it, having him or whoever you elect to serve on the committee, and having someone you can ask questions of, but not get, you can know your costs by retainer.
Well, that's it, and the other thing I'd point out is to make it clear, we're asking Chris. Okay, this isn't something where he's come to us, and so I understand there might be conflicts the other way, but I think, it's a different, to me, it's a different role than what we've had before. Similar to what we use Mr. Carter for on the financial side.
Let me give you an example. If I was a consultant, a legal consultant, and the town had, and instead of an ongoing project, an ongoing lawsuit, I would not be comfortable answering questions about a lawsuit that another attorney is handling without going through that attorney. And that kind of thing is what we need to spell out in the agreement, because we don't want the right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing. So, because that could complicate things with our project engineers as well, and ultimately compromise our position in some of the contracts.
Right, but I think what Mike had suggested, his role being with the beach committee is a different role than we're talking about with the project-specific type of things.
Right.
Right, and so, and I think that that's the kind of role that I'm talking about.
Right.
Okay, is, as you know, I've been an advocate for hiring a beach engineer until I talked to Chris, and he told me they were $200,000 a year, plus you'd have to hire a consulting firm on top of them, so we kind of rolled that one out. But my point being is that the role that Mike described for him with this beach committee, I don't see this beach committee as something that's going to go away. I think it's got to be a permanent type of thing. And you're going to have expertise, which means you're going to have to build that expertise for the group that's in there, me included, and having some constant in there that Mike described for him, I think is consistent with having him under a retainer to us as well.
So I don't think anybody is disputing the need to have that type of expertise on the committee. What I'm hearing is we just need to make sure that is properly documented, that there are no issues with it, and that everybody is on the same page. So what I would suggest is that Mike take that as a follow-up, if you don't mind, and work with our town manager and town attorney.
Yeah,
and they can coordinate that.
Yeah, I don't see it as being a
Conflict of interest.
conflict of interest, and I don't think it's a retainer kind of thing. I think the agreement just says that I will provide information as requested by the committee on an hourly basis.
Well, but if I understand Alderman Grant's desire, it's to be able to access a coastal engineer outside of the context of just the committee.
Definitely.
Okay.
Anytime we have a project that we consider in the future, his company would be able to bid on the project like any other engineering company.
So that's where I think, though, that we need to just go through the process to make sure that it's well documented, the roles, responsibilities, the scope,
Yeah.
and that there is no conflict.
Here's my request then, if that's the consensus of the board, if Mayor Pro Tem Benson would send me a scope of services, as well as you, Mr. Grant, I'll, with Alice's help, I will synthesize that, circulate that to the board, and then you each reply to me individually, not reply all, yay or nay. Ms. Aaron, does that work for you?
Okay?
There's
good?
one other aspect of the committee.
Okay, I'm gonna mute you soon, sir.
The last member of the committee, I don't want to say last, I just want to say the next member of the committee that's proposed in the charter is a liaison with the Onslow County, because we want to build a good relationship with the county for our shoreline projects, our inlet projects, our sound side issues. We are a very important component of the county's tax base, and I think by having a liaison from the county, either from the county manager's office or even one of the Onslow County Board of Commissioners serving as a liaison to the committee, it will be a two-way street to help the county better understand our issues here, and it would be a benefit to the town as well. So I've asked the town manager to contact the county to see if they would be willing to serve in this role, so I will let her answer that question, what information she has today.
Yes, I have emailed the county manager. I emailed her on the January 24th, just advising her that the committee had been created, and gave her information on the committee. and what the purpose was, and asked her for a liaison from the county to serve on the committee. I let her know that we had advertised and we had received 13 candidates that would be appointed at the meeting. And I did ask her to review and then let me know back who she is going to recommend, whether it be an elected or appointed official from the county, and I have not received a response back yet.
Okay.
But we do have a meeting scheduled next week with her, so at the latest, I'll have a follow-up with her at that point in time.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Well, let me just say this.
Okay.
I suggest that we, that the committee follow our rules of procedure to the extent they are applicable to a committee. Some rules won't be, like closed session. They're not going to be able to go into closed session, but under Rule 30, 1 second. If you don't tell them what rules to follow, they can create their own rules. Under Rule 39C, the council may prescribe the procedures by which the city appointed bodies operate, subject to the statutes. In the absence of rules adopted by the council, an appointed body may promulgate their own procedural rules. And I think since it's a board created by this, a committee created by this board, you should dictate, at least initially, they follow our procedural rules, because they are subject to the open meetings law. Okay. Is there any objections to that? Okay. That's all I had, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike, are you sure you're done, sir?
I'm sure.
Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to something that I think will be a little quicker, which would be the land parcel donations. Our town manager wanted to bring that back before the board. We've talked about this, I think previously when this owner had contacted the town.
Yes, I believe it was an October board meeting, Mr. Lucas had made a request to the town, to donate 2 parcels of property, that is, it should have, on your agenda there, if you click on it, the parcel of property, the 2 parcels that you're looking to donate. They're surrounded by ones that we don't own, so that's why this is making the offer to the board. So,
Is,
Ryan in advance to see if there was any issues or potential conflicts with this, so, going over there. So it's, the board at this point, we would like to consider moving forward with us proceeding with, taking ownership of these parcels.
and I am familiar with where these parcels are because I did look when you sent out that, information. But I'm wondering, Ms. Hill, if it's possible to bring out the GIS, because I don't know if all the board members know where these parcels are. I believe they're pretty much across the street in the wetlands across from Topsail Villas.
Yes.
I see it.
As Ms. Hill's pulling that up, we would be subject to whatever restrictions are applicable to it, unless we condemned over the top of it. But I don't know if there's any, if it's wetlands, I don't know. That
Well, and
matters
I'm
anyway.
saying that term loosely. I mean, I'm not a surveyor, so I haven't been out there. I don't know that anything can be done with it. So that's why I wanted Ms. Hill to bring it up. but-
I haven't done a title search to see if any deed
Yes,
restrictions.
ma'am, thank you. So you can see the red line in the back. I mean, that's pretty much, you can't get much closer to the water there. And I believe that that third parcel in, is also wet, so.
Is it fillable?
I don't know. I know that Mr. Riggs had mentioned to me previously that some of these older parcels that were mapped, in some cases you could bring in fill, but I have no idea. I have no idea.
What was the background on why these lots would be donated to the town?
I believe, well, this happens all the time, really. I mean, there's
Okay.
just some owners that have decided they have no use for some of the parcels that they have there. They don't wanna pay taxes anymore, so they offer them to the town. Typically, there's a reason that they're not able to develop them, or they don't want to put the expense into developing something. We don't typically get a nice, large, commercial oceanfront tract donated. So,
And sometimes they're eligible,
yes,
yeah.
and the tax deduction,
Sometimes they're
yes, sir.
eligible for tax credit
Yes.
type stuff.
Yeah.
So is there any downside to us accepting these
I
in terms
mean-
of CAMA or wetland rules?
Well, there's nothing there now, and I believe, and Ms. Hill, could you please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the town may own some lots in there now.
Maybe this is, I haven't had the opportunity.
All of them?
All of it.
We don't know.
It's plugging a gap for us.
Okay.
I don't think Deb was finished. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hill. Go ahead.
I haven't had, this is the first that I've heard of this, and I didn't have a chance to read it or stuff. I believe that we have four along the coast of the roadway, we think we're gonna have some in the back as well. There's only a very small, patch of front that is not, last time I checked, we were looking to see if there was any type of designated parking to
Okay.
The only potential risk we would have by accepting it, if there's existing, either contamination on the property or, fines levied that we would take. I mean, we would handle that in the deed.
Do we need to do the title search before making a decision?
Well, I think if you're going to make a motion to accept it, Mayor, it should be contingent upon due diligence satisfactory to town manager and town staff.
Okay.
I mean, town manager and town attorney, excuse me.
And from a town perspective, Ms. Darren, do you have any concerns about accepting them with, I know we haven't searched yet to see if there's any issues, but, okay. All right, do we have a motion from the board? Do we have a second? Any questions for discussion?
Just for the minutes, as is the motion as proposed by the town attorney? Yeah,
Of
okay.
course it was.
I do that for the town clerk. Thank you.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just a point of comment, on our new shoreline protection website, there is a link to the Division of Coastal Management, and they have a mapper, and you can look at the layers in North Carolina, but specifically in North Topsail Beach, and it shows this area is all wetlands.
They have a bunch of map layers on there that would be helpful for folks, you know, as far as your oceanfront setbacks and all kinds of things. So definitely, that is a great link to put out there for citizens. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business with Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, are you still there, or did you go to lunch?
I'm still here.
Okay, so we have the 2022A bond purchase agreement that we need to take action on. So we need to request a motion to approve this. Before we do that, could you just give us the brief highlights, because I want to make sure that everybody is clear on what they're approving.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that, Mayor. These three actions are, excuse me, typical and customary actions for the approval of a SOB. They've been drafted either by bond counsel or by the counsel to the bank. They've been subject to review by the local government commission, by ourselves, by members of the town staff. And so they've gone through a fairly rigorous process, and they are standard documents that you would see.
Okay. Do we, I'd like to go through the motion process, and we can ask for discussion. So do we have a motion to approve the 2022A bond purchase agreement as presented to us?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
All right.
Okay. There's that one. Okay, so the next one is the 2022A bond order. And Mr. Carter, if you'd be so kind to do the same thing?
Yes, this is essentially, you just approved the agreement that allows PNC to purchase these SOBs, special obligation bonds. The order you're getting ready to take now sort of sets forth how the bonds are structured and does the typical legal side on structure of the bonds.
And I'm assuming that the review process for this is just as rigorous as the review process for the previous? Yes, sir?
Absolutely. For the full set of approvals, all of them have
Okay.
been subject to the same rigor.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the 2022A bond order?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and then the last item would be the 2022A issuance resolution. So, sir, if you could just briefly describe that as well?
That essentially connects the first two things that you've approved, essentially the bank's willingness to buy and our setting forth how it works or the structure of the bonds. This essentially marries in many respects the other documents. It's been subject to the same review and rigor. In fact, this document was drafted by your bond counsel, Parker Poe.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the 2022A issuance resolution?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. So the next item I had asked Danielle to assist me with is a resolution. We used to have one, and it was been so many years ago I wasn't able to locate the original one. But this committee is one that I had originally asked Ms. Plettle if she were scheduled. No discussion or action taken there, anything would come back to this board. What the goal of this has been is to do things to try and pull the communities together. Like right before Hurricane Florence, it's kind of ironic, but we were trying to do a beach cleanup where you could come to town hall and pick up a small bucket and, you know, make a day of it on the beach. It's things like that to draw the community together. Surf City, so that those types of things get discussed there. Anything that we would like to do would come here for discussion and approval. We're able to share things at that smaller venue, like Surf City has some ideas for some concerts that they want to try and do this summer at their facility, you know, where the big community center is. So just trying to promote, and that's why I was thinking Connie would be a good one for this, but I can still pull you in with ideas that come up, and even if you have to join via phone for some of the meetings, we could do that too. The one that got canceled for today, our town managers were going to attend. One of the things that we just wanted to start talking about was storms. You know, what are we doing for our control center in the event of a storm, because now we're back on island. So again, I'm sure we wouldn't have solved that problem today, but at least getting the managers together to start brainstorming. Surf City is definitely set with their off-island, with their huge off-island building. So, but Topsail Beach, for example, I don't think they're ready either. They're not quite sure what they're gonna do. So we just want to have a forum to bring people together, to start discussions, and then bring any action items back to the board. So that summarizes the resolution that you all have. If you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. No questions? Yes, sir. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so the next item on here, no, we've got, yep, E. So this is Mr. Swantek, signage for numbering on the beach side.
I've been approached by several individuals. We have our 911 numbers on the front of our properties, but if you're on the beach, and you're a tourist, there's nothing that tells you where you are on the beach. So what I'm proposing is that we have the same numbers placed on either the uprights of your posts for your decks, or if there's nothing, no deck there, then it'll be a post in the ground, but the same exact numbering. I know we have the machine that makes them. Am I correct?
Well, the only question I have, personally think that it's a fantastic idea, because you don't know where you are when you're on the beach, especially if you don't live here. You don't know what street you're on. But I don't know that if the town is responsible for 911 numbers, or if this is something we want to request the citizens do. I don't know how that works.
I don't either, but the problem with the citizen is, like you said, a lot of them do not live here, and a lot of them are not gonna really care. So I think the town needs to take on this.
Well, I'm wondering what the
little
other
project.
towns have done. And I don't know, council, do you have any idea what the other towns have done?
I don't.
Okay.
I think it's a fantastic
I do
idea
too.
as well. I think it's a big safety concern. I like them on our accesses. I wish they were on both ends of the accesses going over for people who are lost. But just as a note, the 911 blue signs that we have, those were a fundraiser years ago. You could pay like $5, and that's how you got the 911 numbers. That's where they came from.
Now they're 20.
So
They're
maybe-
20 now. Wow. Well, that's how long ago I got mine.
So maybe we could do this. Could we ask staff to investigate what options we might have for trying to provide location numbers on the ocean side?
How much it
You know,
would
Mayor,
cost,
If
I
I
Yes,
could
sir.
just one quick comment before Brian gets in there. We got a problem with telling somebody they gotta put something on private property. What I would suggest is we look at it as a way to subsidize, similar to what we do with the COs, as a way for people to put those out there and to help defray the cost for people to do it. Because I'm not sure how you're gonna mandate that somebody puts a sign on their property. And so, but I think if we subsidize it, to your point, and then we've got this, I think it's a great idea. The question is, how do we implement it, okay? And without just saying, you know, if they're $10 a piece, do we care? Probably not, okay? But to your point, if you've got a half-mile gap because nobody decides to put them in,
You've also got a lot of vacant lots too.
and that's, we just went through that, didn't we?
Yeah, so, council, did you have something?
I think, okay, and I can check it, but I think years ago, Oak Island did something similar. I'll find out and report back to Alice.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that most of the times the towns take this initiative on. It's not something that they ask and provide a subsidy to residents for, because it's something that we would have to maintain. Could become a potential liability issue if something's missing, so we will have to keep good track of what goes up and that it's maintenanced. They're usually put in the ground with PVC pipe, and then we would keep track of where they're located, and we would have to put those on a schedule to
maintenance
routinely
schedule.
check for
And
maintenance.
can we have them possibly on our town easement? I don't know, is that so what I would suggest is that we ask the staff to look into this and
Yeah,
see what
it-
options.
I can come back to the board at the next meeting with,
Thank you.
Yeah,
with
so
the
that'd be
cost
great.
of doing
Well,
that.
not only that, but maybe it's also as simple as we put flags up at our access points, okay? Because what is it, a quarter mile, Deb? I think that we have to have beach access or something like that, so if nothing else, you've got a flag that says.
It's a green flag.
Right.
So,
Yeah. I think it's a wonderful idea, and I would like to see it done before this summer. I like the idea of the flags at the accesses as well. Also, that could be used for when there's dangerous rip current days as well. But I do like the idea of having house numbers somehow or other, because if there's a safety issue, if somebody's drowning, every minute counts. And if they know that it's at 2256, bam, they can get right there.
I agree.
Can I just make a comment on that we don't have lifeguard services on the beach. So if you start to, take that on. You're gonna take ownership of that, as far as flying flags, and that would be, a daily issue that somebody would have to maintain that we don't necessarily have staff to do
And
at this point in
we've
time.
stayed away from the
And the
current
liability.
type.
It's true. And also, Brian,
Flags
didn't you
because of
advise
the
us,
liability.
didn't we have like the CPR units or something
Yeah,
like
we
that we took
did.
down just for that exact reason, right?
Yeah. The
Li-
fire
life
chief
life
was not-
freeze.
yeah.
So, I support this idea too. But here's a question. So, a visitor from Connecticut says, I'm a, what did you say, 225 such and such. When that's called into 911, does the EMS go to that address and trespass across their property and their walkway to the beach to get to the victim, or does EMS go to the nearest public access to access the beach? So I would like the subcommittee, whatever, to be sure you include Chief Sword in your discussions to figure out how EMS responds when they get an emergency call to the police, and what kind of signage would help them find the exact location much faster.
Okay, so let's take that offline and we'll bring it back.
I think Mayor Pro Tem Benson's suggestion is spot on. I mean, if we're doing it to try to help, we need input from the people that we're trying to help.
Well, and I would say that the fire chief has always been very vocal in what he thinks will help him get to someone and what he thinks is gonna be a hindrance. Yeah.
It's my intention to sit down with the, police chief, fire chief, as well as public works.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so the next item I have would be the second open forum. Do we have anybody that would like to speak, or anybody that's signed up?
No one has signed up.
Anybody like to speak? Okay, moving on. Attorney's report.
Real quickly, House Bill 473 was passed in December by the General Assembly, and it pertains to municipal contracts with nonprofits, and it prohibits any elected official who is associated with a nonprofit from participating in either the formation of a contract with a nonprofit or the administration of a contract that's formed. They define associated as being an official who is a director, officer, or governing board member of a nonprofit. And they define nonprofits as being any organization, whether they're incorporated or not, that's operating primarily for religious, charitable, scientific, literary, public health and safety, or educational purposes. So going forward, if there is an agenda item with a potential contract or arrangement that would benefit a nonprofit, we're going to need a disclosure. Procedurally, Madam Clerk, if you'll help me, probably put it on the agenda. Disclosure, if you are a director, officer, or governing board member of whatever's about to be in front of us, it would be your duty to identify that and then recuse yourself from voting. And I recommend for any recusals that you at least step down from the dais, if not outside of the room, while that matter's pending. And other than that, we've already discussed it. I thank the town manager for working with Fran on these tracking program for the projects. We're going to implement that. And unless you have any questions of me, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. I do have just a few things, and it's really just more of a thank you. I am extremely proud of our staff and also Mr. Carter and his organization that we were able to obtain that LGC approval that we need to move forward with our projects. I'm extremely proud of everybody that is working on all of these beach projects to keep them moving. There's definitely a lot of moving parts when you look at all the organizations and permit process, and just trying to continue to improve on how we report out on that. So I wanted to thank you for that, Ms. Darian. Town Hall, I mean, we had a few technical glitches today, but they were figured out. I still think that you'll probably stumble over things for the next month or so as you guys just go through your daily lives here. And again, the website, I am just extremely thrilled that we have updated the shoreline protection page so that when residents have questions for us, we can at least ask them to start there and take a look, and then it better enables us to answer what questions they might have. So really just more of a thank you to everybody for everything that you've been doing. And I think I will start with Ms. Plettle.
Very good. I will try to go fast. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out or watching remotely. I'd also like to recognize Black History Month. Here in North Topsail Beach, we have the honor of having Ocean City within our borders. For those who do not know, Ocean City community is the first place in North Carolina that coastal North Carolina that African Americans could purchase coastal property for community development. If you get a chance, you should go on YouTube and watch Ocean City, a community of firsts. It's very informative. Also, I visited Ocean Isle Beach last week with Alderman Grant to tour its terminal groin after Alderman Benson and Swantek had gone the week before with the town manager. Alderman Grant and I talked with engineers and asked a multitude of questions. It's a very interesting project, and it appears to already be stabilizing and building up the beach at the north end of that island. The construction phase of that project is to be completed in April. I intend to visit the town again during that time to see the project. I do, however, want to emphasize that we have not voted to approve or reject a terminal groin for our town, nor are we even close to that stage. We have a frequently asked questions tab on our town's website if anybody wants information about our town and any potential terminal groin. Speaking about the town's website, I've been assisting Alderman Benson and the town manager to update particularly the shoreline protection part, but we are also looking over other parts and the town manager to give her update as well. Be sure to check out the website for history, information, and updates regarding the town's shoreline projects, and it's a work in progress, so check back often. I met with the Jacksonville Urban Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, JUMPO, that representative yesterday. It was an onboarding session and it was very informative. Some of the town issues we discussed were the intersection of Island Drive and New River Inlet Road, as well as the bike path. She suggested that the town appoint an alternate in case I cannot make it to a meeting. I don't ever intend to miss a meeting, but I do think it's a good idea to have an alternate. And I wouldn't wonder if it would be a good idea to consider some of our other town appointments to have alternates as well, that perhaps we can talk about at the next meeting. I attended the Greater Topsail Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism meeting. It was very interesting. There's a lot going on, and in our area, they'll be holding a ribbon cutting on February 17th at 5:30 at Surf City Line, and on March 16th, there'll be a social at Beach Bums. And I will be attending the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection meeting tomorrow. Actually, I don't think that's the exact title of it. With Mr. Benson, I believe, is going to. The first meeting was virtual and very interesting. The purpose of this committee is to look for practical ways to keep the beaches and waterways and surrounding environments free from trash and pollution. The committee is comprised of representatives from the island towns, the Chamber of Commerce, County Tourism, and others. And even though that was quite long, I'm done.
Connie, the beach bums ribbon cutting, do you know what that is, or could you tell us when?
That one is on March 16th, and I believe it's at, I think it's at 5:30. It's on the Chamber's website.
It's already an existing business, so I wasn't sure.
And they're just calling that one a social.
Oh, that's a social.
That's a social, and the one down at our town line, that one is a ribbon cutting.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wow, I can't follow that. Wanted to thank all of you for coming. Appreciate it very much, and we're glad that this got accomplished. And just thank you a lot for your attendance.
I would just like to follow up on some of the activities of the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission meeting that we had last month now. First of all, the luncheon that Alderman Plettle referred to is an initiative called Topsail Island Environmental Management. And it's an initiative from the Shoreline Protection Commission to get the business community and the citizens involved with taking materials to the beach that are not plastic, to be honest. Plastic on the beach is a real problem in the world's oceans, as we may all know. So the luncheon is to encourage the business community to take steps in their marketing and selling of their products so that items that are taken to the beach are those that can be recycled. There are other aspects of that as well. So we're really looking forward. 90 people are signed up for this luncheon tomorrow. We even have the House of Representatives, Carson Smith from Pender County, will be attending as well. So we've got really a lot of key people coming to the meeting to try to get this initiative across. And the logo for the committee or for this initiative is called Topsail Island Beach Clean. So you're going to be seeing hopefully that logo around the island and on the town's websites in the future. The other thing I wanted to refer to from the Shoreline Protection Commission is the, and town manager and Connie alluded to it, is North Carolina Resilient Coastal Community Project, and this CAT team, the representatives from the different towns have been working on this for about 3 or 4 months now. You can find information on the Topsail Island Shoreline Protection Commission page, tispc.org. At the bottom of the page, there's a CCP big old logo. Click on that, and you can see the storyline that we've developed. And one of the impressive things on this storyline is it has maps that you can look at for sea level rise and for coastal flooding, and it's very interesting what the situation looks like for Topsail Island in the years to come. But also this project that we are involved in, we're going to be able to apply for grants to work for making a more resilient environment here on Topsail Island. And one of the main themes so far in our discussion has been stormwater management. So we're working towards that goal of developing some projects that can be done and we can get some grant money. And by the way, the state legislature appropriated millions of dollars for North Carolina for infrastructure management on stormwater, sewer plants, on and on. It's unbelievable how much money the state is putting into resilience programs for our communities all across the state. And finally, the last thing I wanted to mention was that the Shoreline Protection Commission has a federal advocate. His name is former Congressman Mike McIntyre, and I gave a big shout out to him at our meeting last month. Working with our Senator Tillis in Washington, Senator Tillis was able to get funds for the operation and maintenance Army Corps of Engineer work plan for 2022, get a line item in that budget or that work plan for the New River Inlet to the tune of $3 million. So we are very excited about being able to use that money to improve navigation in the New River Inlet and the channel to Jacksonville for our commercial fishermen in the area, as well as our recreational boaters. So this is a major accomplishment. We are very appreciative of our senators working in Washington to get us those funds. I believe that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
After all of that, all I have to say is thank you for coming out and for your people that are on the TV. I stole all my thunder. I want to thank the town photographer again for the great work that they're doing. Thank Mr. Carter and all people in town for coming back and the finance. It's a real great.
Huge. So the next item on the agenda is a closed session.
Give me 1 second. You would think I have it memorized. It's pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney to protect the attorney-client privilege.
Do I have a motion to go into closed session? Second? All in favor? Well, if everybody could excuse us, you know,
can stay.
I think a short closed session.
Now, I'm gonna let Nate stay in. He's with me.
Okay, we are back from closed session. I'd like to announce that no action was taken in closed session, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we're done. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Blues Brothers. Who am I?
Hey,
Oh, that's right.
B15. B15. Earlier, I felt like I was playing bingo. I have not, but a lot of people tell me I should.
He puts lead in the bingo ball.